Welcome to this meeting of the Emergency Committee, which is being held in accordance with the 2020 coronavirus regulations. I would ask all attendees tuning in to mute their microphones unless they have been invited to speak by the chair. If anyone wishes to speak, please use the raise hand on the function. The raised hand function, and I will invite you in turn to your microphone at the appropriate point. When you are finishing speaking, please remember to turn off your microphone again and take your hand down. Following the questions and debate, in order to make a decision on the item, I will ask the Chief Executive to do a roll call, asking committee members whether they are for, against or to abstain from voting on the proposal. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed via the Council's website and will also be available to view by members of the public and press who are allowed to, by law, to film. Audio record, take photographs, blog or tweet at this meeting. Before we start, can I ask the committee members present to introduce themselves? I'm Councillor Maria Crompton, Deputy Leader and Chair of this committee.
Councillor Ali, Vice Chair of the Committee and Cabinet Member for Resources and Core Services.
Councillor Hadley.
Councillor Hadley, Cabinet Member for Foresight of Communities.
Councillor Moore. Do we have Councillor Moore? No. Councillor Shaheen.
Councillor Farah, Cabinet Member for Living Healthy Lives.
Okay. Do we have any apologies?
None received.
Oh, okay.
I think you forgot Danny.
I forgot you, Danny. You're not on my list. Oh, you are, Mr. Sorry, Danny. How could I forget you? Yes. Councillor Millard.
Thank you. Councillor Danny Millard, Cabinet Member for Inclusive Growth.
Okay. Members to declare an interest? Okay. Additional items of business? I'm not aware of any additional items of business today. Agenda item 4 is the emergency plan. Can I ask Director of Public Health to update the committee on the latest position, please? Is Lisa there?
Thank you, Councillor Compton. I'm just going to share my screen. I'll be very brief. So, hopefully there you can see a trend line. The green line, so this is cases dating back all the way back to March, right through to this week. And you can see the Sandwell, Walsall, Wolverhampton, Dudley and the England lines are mapped on a trajectory showing the trends. Over on the left you can see the main first wave of the pandemic. Here we have June and you can see a sharp line upwards in Sandwell, especially in the last 2 weeks or so. This is the breakdown by town. This is what we call an epidemiological curve. Along the bottom are the days of the week up to the 28th of July. We'll be getting data from the 29th of July later, late afternoon. You can see there that we have 85 cases in the last week, the last 7 days of data, compared to 88 in the week before. I wouldn't want anyone to get excited over that comparison. The week before actually did include some proactive swabbing we did from a large workplace outbreak, which pushed up last week's artificially. Generally speaking, ourselves and Public Health England have done the epidemiological analysis, and the conclusion we've come to is the cases are still rising in terms of the level of community transmission. There's the breakdown by town, and a more recent development is that West Bromwich has almost caught up now with Smethwick. You'll remember up until about 5 or 6 days ago, we were saying that over half of the cases in Sandwell were in the Smethwick area. West Bromwich has also seen a surge now in cases. And I'm going to show you now a map. Whoops, sorry. I'm going to show you a map which gives you some finer detail. So just to interpret this map on the left, the green shading is the amount of cases that we've had from the whole pandemic so far. So you can consider that the background prevalence. The red dots are the cases in the last week. And you'll see if you look very carefully, there's some numbers by them. So some of those red dots represent 4 cases or 5 cases in the same household. The blue dots are the cases from the week before. So essentially, you imagine when a new case appears, it appears firstly as a red dot. After a week, it becomes a blue dot, and then it fades into the green background to the overall prevalence. What's also notable is the table on the right, where you can see the cases organised into age groups. And you'll see there we're following very much a normal distribution in terms of the distribution of cases across the age range. Most of the cases are gathered around working age adults, and only 6% of cases are over 60, with only 4 over 70. This is important, of course, because the case mortality rate for COVID-19 rises sharply with age and is particularly high in older adults over 70. In fact, I would expect more deaths from one care home outbreak than I would from all the cases on that table at the moment. Our issue here is that because a lot of people know that they are relatively safe from serious COVID-19 illness if they're younger, they're not worrying about it too much. So what we need to do is encourage people to think not just as individuals, but as members of a community. And the reason to not become infected is because you may well pass that infection on to someone who would experience severe COVID-19 illness. So I'm going to leave it there, Councillor Crompton, because I know we're pushed for time, but I'm happy to take any questions on the data or any other matter.
Where?
Sorry, Councillor Ali.
Councillor Ali?
Councillor Ali, have you got a question?
Yes, yeah, just a very quick question. Lisa, thank you for briefing on this agenda item today. Just want to say, I was reading an article yesterday in relation to a new track and trace system that this house is introducing. I just wondered.
Very faint, Councillor Ali. Can you speak up, please?
Sure. Can you hear me now? Is that any better?
Little.
I think next item agenda should be replaced with laptop. Lisa, sorry, I was talking about the trace system that this is introducing.
You're breaking up. We can't tell what you're saying.
Is that any better?
Yes, that's a bit better.
Okay, I was wondering, Lisa, if you can elaborate on the new track and trace system that the council put together.
Thanks, Councillor Ali. I heard track and trace then, a new system, so I think I got the gist. So as background, the National Test and Trace system is not really doing a great job in Sandwell or indeed any other areas that are characterised by either high rates of deprivation or, of course, a rich cultural and ethnic diversity where we have a number of non-English speakers in our community. Test and trace in Sandwell is only reaching 6 out of 10 positive cases, which, of course, presents a situation that is really rather dangerous in public health terms, especially as cases begin to rise. We began to get data after much lobbying from government last week, which included the personal contact details of positive cases, which of course we treat completely confidentially and we hold that securely like we do any other personal information. But what it's allowed us to do now is take matters into our own hands. So we've rapidly stepped up our own contact tracing system to make sure we get in touch with positive cases as soon as possible, to advise them that they need to absolutely stay at home because going out when you're positive can cost lives. It asks people whether they've been anywhere where we feel they may have sparked maybe another chain of transmission, could be maybe a party or a meeting or a faith setting or any particular social gathering. And also we ask place of work. We're not getting place of work data at the moment, Councillor Ali, which is a real problem, given that a large proportion of our cases to date are linked to just a few large workplace outbreaks, of which we were not notified of until it was very late. We've been lobbying government to give us that data every day. It's still not coming through. So again, we're taking matters into our own hands and we are delivering that service ourselves. We have met with the test and trace system yesterday, and we're going to try and dovetail our service with them, and we've asked them to make some specific improvements in what they do for the Borough of Sandwell.
Thank you, Lisa. If we then go on to the Chief Executive now.
Thank you, Chair. As we've heard from Lisa, Sandwell is seeing an alarming increase in the number of people who are contracting COVID-19. The latest data shows a 7-day total of 85 confirmed cases, as Lisa has just mentioned, from the 21st to the 28th. That represents a 500% increase on weekly cases for the same period in June. And nationally, Sandwell now has the 8th highest rate of cases in England. The overall number of cases continues to rise rapidly, and as Lisa pointed out, that's especially in Smethwick and West Bromwich areas. It's really important that we, the council, our partners, and most importantly local people, do everything we can to reduce the transmission rates and prevent the spread of this disease. Because of the high number of cases, it's likely that Sandwell will be added to the national watch list today as an area for concern. This means we will have to detail our local plans for managing the outbreak to the national government's contain team. Now, there's no formula that we can follow for producing that plan. Each of our areas is different. But we have sought support from the COVID-19 national programme and, as Lisa mentioned earlier, from Public Health England, and I'd want to thank them for their ongoing support. The Sandwell COVID-19 Stay Safe in Sandwell document that is presented today sets out the broad range of actions that the council, partners and the public may be taking to help avoid a major outbreak, or indeed, if a major outbreak occurs, the plans that we will be implementing to tackle that. That document that's before you today has to be read in conjunction with the Sandwell COVID-19 local outbreak plan and the COVID response plan. I'm sorry, this does sound like a lot of plans. The COVID response plan was presented to this emergency committee earlier in the year, and it gave details of the measures we put into place when government introduced the national lockdown. Both of those documents are publicly available, but I will make sure that if anybody has a specific request, we can get those forwarded to you. Returning to the Staying Safe document, and my apologies, this was only published today, but even as late as this morning, we're still receiving information from Public Health England and the regional team on next steps. We're proposing that we stand up something called an incident management team, where senior council officers, police and colleagues from health work together to manage the resources and direct the tactical plans we need to deal with the outbreak. The IMT, Incident Management Team, will report to this emergency committee or to a full council, and to the Strategic Coordination Group, the SCG, and that's managed and chaired by the police to oversee the multi-agency response in the West Midlands. So that group needs to report to effectively to a regional group. Its goals are to reduce the number of new community cases, minimise outbreaks and manage them effectively when they occur, reduce the impact of the pandemic on the most vulnerable groups in our community, and to work collaboratively to manage escalation measures, including local lockdown should it become necessary. Understanding what's driving transmission and the barriers to control that transmission are essential. Through the IMT, we will need to put in place measures to systematically address those, building at scale and pace on the excellent partnership work that we've already got in place with political oversight, and as I've said, reporting to this committee, full council, or to the SCG. Whilst maintaining services, we'll be continuing to deal with those issues by the Reset and Recovery Board, and again, reports on the Reset and Recovery Board have been brought to this committee before. But the consideration of stopping non-essential services, limiting essential services, or the move to delivering critical services only will be dealt with by the incident management team and reported through to this committee. Now the IMT, the incident management team, that's going to be supported by a number of work streams, or as they're called, I think in a number of other areas, cells. And each of those we're proposing is led by a senior officer from either the council or from our partners. And initially, we're planning that the IMT will meet Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, although that frequency can be flexed if necessary to increase that to every day of the week or stand that down once we've made some progress. It'll have clear public health aims and objectives, risk logs, routine and evolving epidemiology and analytical outputs for both the IMT, the SCG and for this committee. And consistent leadership and partnership member from each cell is going to be really, really important. And those groups or those cells we're working to at the moment are communications with media being delivered by the leader, other community talking heads, multi-channel messages carried out by local community influencers and leaders, a big extensive research campaign, and more of Lisa's expertise than mine, behavioural insight programmes, which feeds back into messaging and tactics for community engagement. We'll be prioritising prevention-focused business and residential engagements, visits at scale, and Lisa's already alluded to the progress that we've made in doing that already, and there's been some fantastic work across the council to achieve that. Tailored, scaled-up testing strategy, and once again, Lisa's already described the fact that that's really important, and that our offer in combination with Public Health England is going to be incredibly important over the coming weeks. Things like development of a council self-isolation offer, so accommodation, financial, social care, health support for those people who would otherwise struggle to self-isolate, including the provision of food. And you'll know that we've just stood down the food hub. In fact, I think its last day is today. We have got other plans in place to make sure that where the provision of food is necessary, we've got other channels to reach out into communities. Looking at in-reach programmes for testing of areas of highest incidence, a social care cell supporting the delivery of strategy to protect the most vulnerable, and that includes testing in care homes and upskilling and testing domiciliary care teams. I mentioned earlier on the epidemiology and the analytics for the provision of specialist advice, and finally pulling all that together through programme management support. We are able to learn some lessons from other local authorities that are in front of us in this, and we are taking all of those lessons on board, and we're not too proud to ask for help and support. So finally, I would ask that the committee endorse the report that's presented today, including the Stay Safe in Sandwell document, and secondly, endorse the start of a media campaign designed to take whatever measures we can to avoid government instructing us to undertake a local lockdown in Sandwell. And so, subject to the approval today, we will be appealing to our local residents to do three things. If you're shielding, continue to do so. Don't have non-essential visitors to your home. And if you have symptoms, self-isolate at home and book a test. The recommendations above apply to the whole of Sandwell. It could be argued that because some areas of the borough are less affected by the surge in cases than others, that the advice on shielding and household visits should only be issued to those living in the most affected areas, Smethwick and West Bromwich. However, Lisa and I have had some extensive conversations around that. This more selective approach is likely to cause confusion and mixed messages, especially in the areas near to the boundaries of those defined town areas. Also, the nature of the coronavirus spread is such that we can't at this time offer any assurance that the surge in cases won't spread to all areas of Sandwell in the coming days and the coming weeks. Therefore, it's safer and more effective to make this advice applicable to everyone living in the Sandwell local authority. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Have we got any questions or issues that any of us want to raise at this point? Any hands going up? No. Before we move to the vote, it is very serious, and we need to make it very clear from all the evidence and the statistics that we have, no one is without risk of catching this awful virus. It's already claimed many lives and has already made very many people ill. It is absolutely everyone's responsibility to stop and limit the spread of this virus. The council needs to be very clear. We're targeting all available resources to address the situation, but every member of the community has a part to play. Please, I can't stress enough, we need to follow the guidance to limit the risk of exposure and spread the virus. We must not let this virus get out of control. I know how difficult it is when we're worried about families and jobs, but please, if anyone that you know or live with are showing symptoms, do not leave home. Do not leave home. Retain social distancing where you can. Wear face coverings in accordance with the guidance. Council is here to help and support everyone in our community, but we need to ask all our residents and businesses to do your part. Without your help, we cannot beat this. The committee is being asked to approve the lockdown plan as detailed in the report. I'll now hand over to the Chief Executive to take the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crumpton, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Hadley, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain?
For.
And I believe we don't have Councillor Moore. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Everyone is in favour of the recommendations. They are therefore approved. Thank you, everyone. I'll bring the meeting to a close.